Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order, 6:04. Rippity wrap up those side conversations. First things first, I'm gonna add to the agenda. I'm gonna add an executive session, first thing on the agenda, so underneath the public comment section. Or, well, underneath action to approve the agenda, really, so before the consent agenda. And it'll be under executive session T1 VSA 5313A. And it'll be disciplinary or dismissal action against an employee. We don't need any premature determination or anything like that, so I will add that. So again, it'll be under approve agenda and above the consent agenda. So at this time, I will take public comment. Seeing and hearing no public comment for this first section, I'll move down to the action item to approve the agenda as amended, really, for adding the executive session. Can I get a motion, please?
Second.
Melissa first, Kristen second. Any discussion about that? Okay. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. So we're gonna move into executive session. I think it makes the most sense for us to move into the campfire room.
I just need somebody from the board to log into the Zoom that has a computer here, and we'll bring that computer in with us.
Mike, you got,
I could probably do that.
okay, if not, I have it right here.
And then I'll create a breakout room that will invite that computer in, so.
Okay, all right, and the rest of the board, you'll get a breakout room. Okay. Oh, holy shorts, I forgot to add Katrina.
Me.
Or actually, we gotta move into it, actually. So we'll do it in the proper order, everybody. Can I please get a motion to enter executive session under T1 VSA 313? A disciplinary or dismissal action against an employee.
So moved.
Who said it first? Meredith first, Barb second. Any discussion? Can we please? I am just floating through this really gracefully this afternoon. We need to invite in Katrina and Patrick into that executive session. Would you like to make a friendly amendment to your motion to invite in Katrina and Patrick?
Yes.
Thank you. Still second, great. All those in favor of moving into executive session at 6:08, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, then you will move into executive session. All right, we're gonna move down to the consent agenda. Can I please get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Meredith,
Second.
Mike second, any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. We'll move down to the executive limitations monitoring, and the first is an update from the Up for Learning group. And you can see we have a few people with us in the audience tonight, so they have a presentation that they're gonna give us. They'll do their introductions and all that, and then there's a chance to interact and get up and move around, so be ready for that. Okay.
Thanks, Aaron. That's a great start. Yeah, let's.
Come on up,
Yeah,
don't be
let's-
shy, come on up.
Yeah,
Maybe like two of us can stand here and two of us can stand here and we can split out. Cool. Does that sound good? You want to stand with me, Cam? Yeah. Awesome.
thank you for inviting us to come this evening and share some of our work.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I need your name.
Harry Frank. And I work with an organization called Up for Learning. And the UP and Up stands for Unleashing the Power of Partnership. So our work is based on two pillars. One is that young people should be at the table to make decisions about what happens in their educational journey as true partners with adults. And we should do it as thoughtfully as we possibly can. And so we use something of a research model. And that's much of what we'll talk about tonight and take you through in an abbreviated fashion as it relates to the development of the portrait of a learner in your district. But let's start with brief introductions, because I think it will help me and all of us if we're a little bit more, we know who's here. So how about this for just a prompt? If you would share your name, your role or your connection to this board, this district, and this is, as I often do with groups, a television show that you really think is important to watch. And part of that is because I want to tell you that you should watch Ted Lasso if you haven't watched it. And I'll add the embarrassing fact that I'm watching it for the 10th time. And I'll leave it at that. I'm gonna pass it to Noelle, and we'll go around this way.
Hi, my name's Noel.
How about what school were you at? That would be helpful for people to know.
I go to Bristol Elementary School.
If we can always come back, like if you want more time to think about you, because it is a big, yeah, I get it. I knew what I was gonna say, so. Cam, can we pass it over to you?
I'm Cameron. I go to Bristol Elementary School. I'm in 5th grade.
Awesome. I am Susanna. I work with Harry and these two with Up for Learning. I'm watching Severance. I recommend it if you're into sci-fi or anything of that ilk. It's got me thinking. Past Patrick.
Hi, I was getting your slides ready to go.
Thank you, yes. Perfect.
Patrick Green, superintendent.
Patrick,
So
are
you're
you
looking
watching
for-
television at all, or is that
Television.
not in the scope of things?
Occasionally, we just finished what's up there for The Old Man. Oh, The Old Man. Yeah.
Erin Jupiter, I'm also on the Up for Learning team, board chair, live in Bristol. Noelle's actually my kiddo, if anyone didn't know. And TV show, what have we been watching? I think we bounced around through a couple of things, but we just started The Perfect Couple, which is like a murder mystery show. Not kid friendly.
I'm Liz Sarah and I'm from Bristol and I mean. So there's a show, it's called Sophia the First.
Oh, yeah. I've been watching a lot of that.
Watching
I know
a lot
what
of that at home. I don't know.
I've seen it.
That's great, thank you.
I watched it once.
That's all the TV I got. I'm Meredith Rossignol, also from Bristol, also watching a lot of Sophia the First. So the place for my toddler right now is Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, which is top tier toddler program.
Mike Dash, from Bristol, Brandon, lumped together. And TV show, a little sci-fi theme. We watched one a little while ago called Mrs. Davis, which is like the strangest show I've ever seen. But was truly enjoyable by the end, for sure.
Melissa Laurie from Bristol. Like I'm swearing, but I really like Schitt's Creek.
I'm Herb Olson from Starksboro. My boys went to Robinson and the Mount Abe, and I enjoy watching Blue with my grandkids.
Brad Johnson, also from Starksboro. As far as television is concerned, I sort of alternate between watching the Boston Celtics and Mexican telenovelas.
I'm Kristen Toy, also Starksboro. I too enjoy, as my kids used to call it, Poops Creek.
Yeah.
And I often go back to it. But my guilty pleasure is Top Chef.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
I'm Barb Crandall. I'm a Moncton representative to the board and I was gonna say the news, but I don't watch that anymore. so-
Can't do that anymore.
Maybe Jeopardy.
And Harry, we're gonna
Yeah.
jump up to
Yeah.
Zoom because we have
Oh, great.
three board
Thanks,
members
Sarah.
up on Zoom and Kim is on Zoom as well.
Great.
So Kathy, do you want to start?
Kathy Apgar, I'm the New Haven representative to the board. My favorite show, and my kids went to Beaman Elementary. My favorite show is Call the Midwife. It's a BBC production.
Justin?
Justin I live in Moncton. My daughter goes to first grade at Moncton Central, and I'll have another one there in a couple years. And like Herb, I find myself binging Bluey with the girls, and I just finished Ted Lasso, so I'm right there with you.
Kylie?
I'm Kylie Pelland. I live in Moncton. I'm on the board. I've also been participating in the Up for Learning initiative and television series we just watched as a family with my older children was Lock and Key. I think that's what it was called. We all liked that.
And then Kim?
Hi, Kim Callahan. I'm a community member on the Up for Learning team, and I'm here with my daughter Kylie, Mount Abe grad, and she's watching. What are you watching? White Lotus.
White Lotus, and also not kid friendly, but doing the White Lotus Severance bounce back and forth as well.
And I'm watching Bad Sisters. So thank you.
Does that cover?
Great,
the
that
board?
covers it, thank you.
Noelle and Kim, any TV recommendations before we move on?
Dragon Prince, Wally.
Okay.
That's a movie, but we'll take it.
We love it.
And I forgot to mention, I'm also a representative from the board for learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Beth,
Thanks
too,
for
I
adding
see
that.
Beth up there. Beth's good. Perfect.
Well,
Okay, thank you all.
Is definitely all about almost anyone. Yes.
Am I, you wait for me? Floyd Davison, I'm the business manager in diners, drive-ins and dives, or Seinfeld comedians getting coffee in cars. Cause they're only about 17 minutes long, and that's about all.
Good for the attention span for sure. Thank you, everyone. That was great. I've definitely got a few shows that I'm gonna add to my notes app there. We're gonna do a few things today that Erin sort of previewed, but the first is just to give you an update of the work. If you're able, Patrick, to post over to the slides, that would help me. But really, I mean, I'll just speak for myself. It's been really rewarding to work with your school district. They're amazing youth, they're amazing adults. And the work has felt really all hands on deck and authentic. And I'm just super proud. So hopefully you get to see some of that today. I think if you pop over to slide 3, that would be a good place to start.
And present, but I'm not seeing present option.
Yeah. Maybe those arrows. And this I put as just a reminder to myself to let you know, if you haven't already, you should receive the Portrait of a Learner guide. It's not finalized yet because we've still got plenty of work to do, but we've put together a report that shares in way more detail than we're able to share with you today, each part of the process, and got some great pictures in there too. So I would encourage you to read through that when you have some time. And you know, I think we've had the privilege of speaking with you before, but just as an update, you know, all of this work is in service of having a shared vision that's anchored in the people who you're aiming to serve, the youth, and bringing youth and adults together to create a North Star that's gonna anchor your strategic planning that you'll be doing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But a portrait of a learner is a way to kind of figure out what do we care about? What are the skills, characteristics, and experiences that we want every single MAUSD learner to have? And once you have that, you can kind of move forward with a sturdy sense of like, this is who we are and this is what we're investing in. And I think as we move forward in the slides, we can let you know a little bit about the how we did that. Anything you want to add, Harry?
No, you're.
Jump in, okay.
You're okay, yeah.
So a little bit about the who before we get to the how. We had a portrait of a learner core team. So there's like a little tiny graphic that you have to squint to read, but essentially we had teams from every single school in the district with youth and adult members represented from each of those schools. We also had members of the board and members of the community. And we came together for 4 retreats and then every month at the cafeteria to move this work forward. There were 26 youth from grades 5 through 12, 11 staff members, including nurses and substitute teachers and classroom teachers and special educators, 4 board members, 4 community members, 4 administrators. So it was a good, really good cross-section driving the work that I think led to a lot of the success that we see. And this was our timeline. Right there. So we started in earnest in August with the board retreat. And then we had some retreats up front in the fall. I won't spend too much time here because we're actually going to kind of show you, but this is a little graphic to tell you a little bit about how the year was planned out. You can head to the next slide. This is the how. Do you remember seeing this? This slide, yeah, we looked at this every single time we came together. This is our YPAR trail map. YPAR stands for Youth Participatory Action Research. And really it's kind of a theory of change that brings together essentially like a team of researchers who are going to be mobilized and trained to go out in their communities, tap into the voices of the people in their communities, bring that data back, analyze it, and then do something with it. So that is, we've moved all the way around this trail map. We've doubled back a few times. And I think importantly, the first part is just building relationships. And I feel like, do you feel like you've built some relationships with this team? Yes. Awesome. All right, to the next slide. So yeah, this is just a little walk down memory lane. In October, we had our kickoff retreat, and that was really about training up the team in the concept of youth adult partnership. Why should we work together? So much of the work of schools happens without youth at the table, and we miss out massively when that happens, when we forget to talk to and partner with the people who are the whole point. So we talked a lot about that, and I remember that being a really powerful session. And really quickly, they amazingly pulled off a whole in-service training that was led and co-facilitated with some youth at the October in-service. So this was a way for staff to get plugged into the work and to collect some data from staff as well. And then we got going thinking about, okay, we want to hear from everyone in all of our schools and in our community about the skills, characteristics, and experiences that every MAUSD learner should have. How are we going to do that? So we got trained up in how to collect data, how to gather voices, lots of different strategies, and each team made a plan to go out into their worlds and collect that good information. And so in the winter, starting in November and through the winter, there were surveys, there were at Beeman, Elise, who wanted to be here but had a conflict. She had the great idea of putting an activity for all Beeman students at the mock election booth. So every single student got to go in and weigh in on the skills, characteristics, and experiences they wanted to have. We heard from every Beeman student. There was a Moncton team that interviewed every kindergartner. This team of 6th graders went into kindergarten classrooms and they sat with kindergarten students and they asked them, and they collected that information through writing and through drawing. So in this portrait of a learner that we are gonna share with you today, even the youngest voices are taken seriously and represented. And then we got all this data. And we had a whole retreat of poring over the data and analyzing it. And kind of starting to do some affinity mapping, noticing like, what are the big themes that we're hearing? And we did another round because part of that trail map is like, did we get enough? Can we be proud of, you know, how many voices we heard? Do we feel like this is representative? And I think by the time we got to February, we were like, we could do more. So we doubled back and we did another round of data and then another round of analysis. And then just last week, we had our final retreat. We pulled it all together. The photo on the right there is Caroline from Bristol Elementary working with a hardy crew of adults on finalizing the drafted language, which we'll share with you and get your feedback on today. So that's where we are right now. And this is just kind of a bird's eye view. So all of this hardy team, we've gathered the voices of 1,140 people. 354 middle and high school students, 414 elementary school students, 170 staff, and 200 members, which is, I think, something to feel really good about, that you're anchoring what will become a huge part of your strategic plan in these voices. So where we are right now is finalizing the language and the design. We had a great design meeting at the last meeting and captured a lot of really important and creative ideas that are going to be communicated to a graphic designer. And we have spent some time refining the language for the portrait of a learner, but we wanted to make sure we got your feedback today. And that the other piece is each team is really thinking about how are they going to share back this work with their students, so it doesn't feel you know, random. Like people feel like, yep, we know what this is, and we felt like we were part of it, and we had all the information we needed. Now, I would love to hear some takeaways and highlights. We have some from people who wanted to be here, some youth who wanted to be here but weren't. And we're going to hear from Noelle. And we can open the floor if anyone who participated on the board wants to share. But I'm wondering, Noelle, do you want to kick us off by sharing? Okay.
My favorite part of being on this team is seeing people grow and expand in learning, and to make new friends and to see people stay and participate.
Awesome, thank you. Do you want to read Calvin?
Yeah, so Calvin, who is a student at Bristol Elementary, wrote, and I don't remember, but he couldn't join us tonight, so he asked us to, right. So he wrote, "The portrait of a learner team matters to me because I get to talk to people about how I can help make my school a better place. I'm proud that I get to work with all of these amazing people. They're my favorite part of being on the team. Something I want you to know about our team and our work is that we're amazing."
Do you want me to read yours? All right, here's what Cameron said. "My favorite part of being on this team is having an awesome team and friends from Bristol with me. We all have had different opinions. My favorite part was meeting new people." I think we can just leave some silence if anyone wants to fill it with any reflections from adults who participated. No pressure.
I think for me, it was really amazing to see the growth that occurred between the adults and the students, and the common themes that came up, and how seriously everyone took their jobs. And it made me realize that how valid the end result is.
I think it stuck out to me the first meeting we had, we opened the door for some really brave students to talk about things that were really affecting them as students, and that included things like safety and belonging and but also some of these other core values that we talked about and have come up with some to share with you tonight, but that really struck me as something that's not typical, it's not usual, right, to have such a large group of people come together one time and start talking about really heavy things right off the bat. So that really struck me as something like reinforcing how important this was for people. And that kind of kept me going as we trudged through a lot of really heavy lifting.
Can I add, because I was gonna ask Patrick and Katrina, number one, I want to say thank you, because I think your presence and your commitment to the work and your clarity about why we're doing this and how we're doing it made for much of what actually happened. So I want to give you a thank you for that. And then from the perspective of, the inside the system, whether there are any comments you want to add before we shift to the next part of this.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I've said it before, I'll say it again, having youth at the same table with us, especially those of us who have participated in strategic planning and trying to identify those ends or that North Star many times in my career, this has taken on a different tone, which I really appreciate, and kind of keeps us in check, me in check, in a way that has me be a better listener in a lot of ways. So I appreciate that a lot. It's also fun to watch the students manage the hard work that we do as adults oftentimes, sorting through survey data. I've said this one before where one student said, I can't believe it. This feedback is the exact opposite of this feedback. Now what do we do? Many of us have seen that happen many, many times. So it's really helpful to be able to pay it forward with our students.
Much like others have said, I really appreciate the willingness and the ability of students to share their voice in really meaningful ways. And likewise for adults to really hear that. Like it's a challenge sometimes as adults to really take that in meaningful ways. We just want to keep moving on. And sort of to Katrina's point, like we often needed the students' help to keep groups of adults moving forward, who as adults got to overthinking and complicating things, and the youth were just like, no, like this is clearly what this has. We're moving on, and so that sort of leadership amongst groups of adults was impressive as well, from some of our youngest youth that were participating, and some of our oldest as well. So really, just that relationship between the adult and the youth being as genuine as it was something that was really has been and will continue to be a pleasure to be a part of. Thanks.
And this is Kylie online. I can really echo what everybody said, but like Aaron said, well, we did kind of do some, talk about some heavy stuff at times. It was really fun and uplifting. Everybody was really respectful. It was a great experience for me, and it makes me feel very, like the information, the input we have is really global. We have so much input from all different parties, and that makes me feel better prepared, like going into the strategic planning, knowing that we have heard, hopefully, a wide variety of voices.
Kathy, I saw your hand pop up, so if you want to say something, just put your hand back up, we'll get to you.
I just wondered who were the representatives from the tech center?
That's a really good question and something we thought about. I don't think we had any staff from the tech center, no, or youth, right? But I do remember Matt Tatro paying really good attention to that question and making sure the survey data got to the tech center. So we didn't have any representatives on the core team, but I remember Matt having that same kind of bell go off in his brain of just like, we need to make sure we're hearing from all of our youth, whether they're at the tech center or otherwise. So they're definitely represented in the data.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. think maybe for time, we'll keep it moving. That was really great. And the next slide has kind of our next steps.
Advance the slide?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a plan to touch back with the staff in May. And to continue to get their voices, much like we're doing with you all tonight. And then this summer, it's kind of like we were saying as a group that was preparing for this board meeting, like the portrait of a learner can't just be a pretty document, you know, it's got to be something that is embedded in the work moving forward. And so the plan there is to use the portrait to revise the ends policy in the summer. And then to begin the strategic planning, I think in August, if I understand kind of correctly what we're thinking. And we added with an equity lens, just knowing that this process has really been rooted in making sure we're hearing all voices and we are, you know, checking in with our own biases and our own kind of traditional ways of doing things and challenging ourselves where needed. And I think one of the most equitable things any school district can do is to center young people in the process, which is a huge part of what we've been doing. And I think the charge of the board to do, to make sure that educational equity exists in MAUSD is an ongoing mission. It's not going anywhere. And so thinking about, as you make plans to, you know, allocate resources and set goals, that you're constantly checking in with, like, who are we centering, who are we leaving behind, where are priorities based on that information. And the portrait of a learner, I think, can be a really good way to tap back into that, being like, we've heard from our whole community, but this is what matters, and you can apply that lens through the portrait of a learner. So that's where that language is intentionally added. And I think to that point is like, developing the strategic plan, but then figuring out like what are the mechanisms and the structures that are going to allow you to stay accountable to it, to get feedback on it. And so that's kind of the next phase. We're wrapping up phase one, but there's a whole nother phase. All right, so got some homework, or here work rather. I'm gonna pass these out. And this is the drafted language right now for the portrait of a learner. And what we'd love for you to do is to just take some time and write down some I likes. What do you like? Popping out as a strength, something you're glad to see on there. And then I wonders. Like, I wonder if this word would be better, or I wonder why this is where things like. So take a little time.
An electronic version I could.
Here.
Thank you.
Do you have the board agenda that I shared? With this? Yeah.
For those of you online, we're gonna send it to you electronically.
And they can write it and share it. Yeah. You wanna run it out to Steve?
Yeah, no, you can see, yeah. So we're gonna pause for a couple minutes to give you time to actually write on these, because we'd like to collect your feedback. And let's say after, I don't know, we'll try to read the room in a couple minutes. And ask for a couple initial takeaways, just to get a flavor of what your processing has led you to. And if people want more time, we could certainly leave these with you and get them back to Patrick and Katrina. So let's see where we are in a couple, 3 minutes. And go from there.
Yeah, it's folks on mine, send it back to the NI and then.
Yeah.
So folks that are online, with the screen shared now, this is what folks here in person are looking at and making notes on. If you want to email Aaron Gipner and I, your feedback, we'll share that electronically with folks here, so you have feedback from everyone.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. The presentation that we were just putting through. You shared with June. Yeah.
You just walk out the store, there's one right in the hallway right there. You can be back with these. Hopefully. Right. They weigh in. Or that we do at home, but.
I think that's not. So, okay.
You can see that this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
We're gonna move forward in a moment here, but if you're in the middle of writing something, make sure you get to finish that. And we are gonna leave, we're just chatting, we're gonna leave these papers in your hands. At this point, it feels a little bit rushed to try to collect them to, in 2 minutes. But when you finish where you're at, then we'd like to have a few minutes of conversation before we wrap up. Yeah. So one of the things we wanted to do in the context of this board meeting was to give you a little flavor of what our work is, when we're with a big team or a small team for that matter. And so some of what we're doing in terms of taking a moment to write and sort of think to yourselves as part of the process. We're gonna take a minute and just ask you to turn to the person next to you. Think out loud with them for a minute or two, whatever might be at the top of your mind with your initial review of this language. And then invite maybe 2 or 3 people to share with the whole group. You know, here's one thing that has emerged just in these first 5 or 10 minutes. And then again, we'll leave these papers with you because as we were checking in, it seemed like that was too quick to try to get your input. And we want this input to circulate through the whole process, including coming back to you as we move toward the work on a strategic plan. So let's take 2 minutes to talk to the person next to you. Take the conversation wherever you'd like to related to this language. And then we'll come back together and just invite 2 or 3 people to share initial thoughts or reflections.
That was me.
Yeah.
What
I see.
Yes.
Like, I know.
Right. Worried about the verbiage. Yeah. She doesn't know the imprints.
So I would.
So I spend a lot of time.
Right.
Talking about beautiful and one bullet point out of how many are here. I think I should word it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Where's.
Yeah, academics are on here.
I don't see them exactly.
Yeah.
Did expand.
Yeah, yeah, because I can build a work with one place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can.
You know, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So. One.
Yeah. You know how we were. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Do you want to read what you think?
Are all.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not sort of. Now I check those.
Exactly. Yes. And that's.
Just kidding. Knowing how to get along.
Yeah.
Okay, let's come back together.
Yeah.
It's always a good sign when people don't listen to you when you're asking them to focus,
Yeah.
but With that in mind, I know, well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's that funny thing about like the thing you really want to have happen happens, and then you're like, and, you know, one or two or three sort of thoughts to share. Again, this is a very preliminary kind of look at this language and where it's going or where it came from. But it's helpful for us, and I hope for you all to hear each other as you navigate this. So just an invitation to anyone to sort of think out loud for a moment. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, something that jumped out for me was, under the safe and inclusive, the last bullet, they're able to express their ideas without causing mental or physical harm. I wonder if using the word emotional instead of mental, might be a more inclusive way of kind of showing, feelings in general.
I mean, it's great feedback, and it looks like you were writing some.
Yeah, I
and
wrote
so,
it in there.
yeah, I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing I think we're listening for, so thank you. For
Yeah.
that. Anybody else wanna offer an initial thought? I mean, you two are watching the same TV show, you should be totally on the same page.
Liz had a really good thought on the safe and inclusive section too. The last bullet point, again, they're able to express their ideas without causing mental or physical harm. Liz was talking about how all behavior is communication, and that's a really nice way to say, let us know your needs, but do it in a way that's safe and inclusive. So I liked that insight. Yeah.
Yeah, that, I've heard that phrase, all behavior is communication, is that right? Yeah, and that's really thought provoking, so thanks for bringing that to the table. And yeah, how about one more?
Yeah, I think both of us noticed some areas that felt like they were pretty heavily overlapping across these, and that sort of led to a broader conversation about like, I think I'd be disappointed if there was like a checklist, like these are the 6 things that feel independent of one another, and really trying to figure out like, what do these all have in common, or what unites them, or what is the structure that then this all builds to the learner, as opposed to like, you can break that down into like individual components. And so maybe understanding those similarities and some of the differences to try to weave them into a broader narrative as opposed to a checklist.
That's a really cool thought, and the first thing it makes me think of is the visual that is gonna be crafted. So, and I was glancing over you briefly, because I know Patrick's been talking to the graphic designer, who's gonna come to one of the work sessions.
Came to Mount Abe today, actually, to
Wow.
become inspired to shape this
That's great.
vision, and he has the draft of these pillars, and he has some of the concepts that emerged from the student drawings at our last retreat. So he's gathering information to start to give it some shape, and then he'll be at our next session here at Mount Abe with some concepts for us to review.
Yeah, because I just think of like the first thing people are gonna see is the visual. And how does it create this sense of like wholeness and connection, as opposed to like, okay, you gotta check these things off to be a graduate here.
But-
Yeah.
But to that point too, the interconnectedness, like we had a heck of a time parsing out some of these to say, and even boiling this down gave us all sort of heartburn, right? Because they were so big, there were so many words to describe the skills, the attributes, the experiences kids should have when they graduate here. And we struggled over condensing them because they all felt like those are big things and these are big themes, and this is what the community feels is important, and this is what students are saying. So even to come up with 6 independent ideas was really hard for us. But we did it because that's what it entailed, right? But I agree that these aren't, I don't think they're meant to be looked at independently, but rather as like a spectrum, right? Of these are the things that we hope for, and that will give us a guideline to what we think, but they're all interconnected and related to each other. So I don't think, just to maybe put some ease into your mind, that I don't think they're meant to just be like, yep, Mike has that, Mike has that. It's more of, have we offered the opportunity to practice in these areas, and have they demonstrated that they're able to practice in those areas?
Thanks. Yeah, I feel like that's a good point to pass it back to you to bring it to a close.
Yeah.
So,
Well, first I want to welcome our latest arrival, Calvin, who, can I gas you up a little bit about your facilitation at the last retreat? Calvin opened the retreat by yo-yoing, led a whole icebreaker at the very last minute to this massive group of people, was the timer for our data analysis, like had it on his watch and kept us all in line, and then closed with yo-yoing as well. So it was really helpful. So this is what we mean by like shared facilitation, is like Calvin fully just like took a lot of the responsibilities of facilitating that last retreat off our plate. And it was really wonderful. I guess the question we wanted to ask you is like, why did you show up tonight? Like what brought you here?
I only showed up because I wanted to have fun and we're gonna keep it.
That's good. That's a good reason. Did you bring your yo-yo? No. Stay tuned, maybe another board meeting down the road. Yeah, I guess we want to just open it up for any questions. I know we're probably tight on time, but we would be remiss not to give you some space to share any reflections or questions that you might have.
Thank you for coming tonight. It's really cool to see this all come to fruition from when we talked about it last summer, which feels like forever ago at this point.
Yeah, it does.
I'm really excited to see the next steps. I'm looking forward to where this is gonna all go.
Yeah, and when you're talking next steps and things, I was happy to, see you're figuring out, how to engage in the strategic planning process. I think that would be a good addition.
Thinking about the next steps and the task before us all to keep the youth voice strong in conversations around how do we change the ends in light of what we know about the portrait of a learner, and keep that youth voice in the strategic planning process, and just keep that youth voice as a thread throughout these processes that we have to work through.
This may be a naive question, but I was just wondering, and I'm thinking the high school has a student advisory council. Do all the elementary schools and middle school, do they have that? No.
Not necessarily.
Okay, so that. It's like.
What
could
an
be the
opportunity.
future.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that. I don't know if you knew this, but there are other districts we've worked with on this work, and that's been one of the structures they've built in to live out their portrait of a learner. So they have student advisory councils at each of their school that are youth adult teams that are looking at aspects of the portrait of a learner and doing change work in their schools and kind of like parlaying with the board and administration. Or I think the superintendents often will attend or have the ear of each student advisory council to bring that back to spaces like this. So I don't know if we've chatted about that, but you sort of like, that's one mechanism I think is really impactful. Thank you all. So, I saw a hand.
Oh, no, sorry, I was just gonna cheer.
Okay. Thanks very much for your time. Definitely check out the report. There's a lot more information. And don't be a stranger if you have any questions, but it's been such a great privilege to work with your district so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
All right, we're gonna move on down then to our next item under executive limitations, which is an update from our ELP program, expanded learning program. So it's another presentation.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Doing well. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah.
Okay.
So in this way, we know that there's all this data out there that we can track now that students who participate in after school and summer activities see that really significant increase in sense of belonging that we're really looking for. In addition, we're going to talk a lot about tonight our equity and inclusion approach, and so much of that is making sure that this program is barrier-free, so that any family can access, whether they need a scholarship or they need financial aid. There is no barrier for families to come and access our program.
We were hoping that we could just take a look at the ELP organization chart, just to get a sense of the system, how we work, and also just a visual that I will explain in a second. But you can see right at the top that our values revolve around what John was just saying: equity and access, safety and quality. And our leadership team, you can see we've got the ELP co-directors here in the flesh. We have a family support coordinator, operation manager, and director of arts and enrichment that all correspond with the values of the program. So each of these positions is really ensuring that these aspects are taking place. And then what we feel like is really important and revolve around a lot of the questions that were coming up in the spring and the fall is around how we financially sustain the program. So we'll talk about it again, but we have like a little spectrum visual up here, if you can use your imagination. And we've done rectangle sizes in relation to how much of an investment each of these agencies provide. So you can see, well, you can't see here, but MAUSD is covered up by Talking John Amory. But right there, we have our direct supervisor is Assistant Superintendent Katrina DiNapoli. And you might notice that that rectangle on the spectrum is the smallest. What that's representing is that MAUSD provides the lowest financial investment in the program. Now, Floyd would argue around in-kind service and all the free spaces and all those things, but we could talk about that. But the beautiful spectrum here is important. Next, you'll see the Vermont Agency of Education. That represents a sizable grant that we have received over 10 years. We're in our third iteration, and we're waiting in the balance to find out more information about that. But the Agency of Education manages the 21st Century Community Learning Grant, but it's a federal grant. So it's coming through and managed by the AOE. About 25% of our overall budget comes from that grant investment. Next, you'll see the Vermont Child Development Division. That's about 35% of our budget. And what that is because we're licensed programs, qualifying families receive subsidies. So basically the state pays the tuition for many, many of our families that we serve. And finally, we have added our ELP families. There is a portion of our budget sustained by their fees. So, but as John talked about, and hopefully what we can show you tonight is that we have all provisions in place and everything thought through to ensure that every family who is looking to enroll and to access the program, barring space, which is important to say, right? We have limited space, ever growing, we provide that service. So here it is. This is just islanded school systems. And we'll talk more about our employees as well.
Here some of them are.
There they
So it's maybe my favorite slide tonight. This is a snapshot of some of our employees that are currently working with us or work with us in the summer. Overall, in the summer, we have over, depending on the year, we have around 60 employees. During the school year, it goes down to more like around between 50 and 60 scattered over our 5 sites. So we have a sizable staff, and we love them, and we hope they love us too. But we feel so lucky to have all the folks that work with us, whether it's coming in for one workshop a year or working with us throughout the whole year. These folks are such a mix. So there's community professionals, they're licensed teachers. We have a lot of district employees, whether they're behaviorists or coaches or coordinators. And then we have alumni. So we have a lot of students who are now in college that have come back and worked for the program, especially in the summer. They come back for a summer job, which makes just such a fun environment and really like deepens the relationships that we've had, that we continue to build. And then we also have a ton of high school employees, and this is something we've really grown with a CIT program we'll talk about more. But also just from freshmen through seniors, they come and they work in Solo. For a lot of them, it's their first job. So we're really proud of our staff. As Mandy mentioned, we're a licensed program, so we're overseen by the CBD for that license. And there is a very thick book of all the things we have to do to stay in compliance, including around professional development and making sure our staff are fully trained. And so depending on the role, you're going to receive 8 to 20 hours of professional development to meet those requirements every year. We provide some of that in-house between ourselves and our admin team. But we also tap into programs like Vermont After School, which is a statewide nonprofit that supports after school programs all over the state. They're amazing. And they have these really well-trained professionals who come in and teach us different things about how to best support our students. One thing we're going to talk about tonight is also looking ahead and what our goals are as a program. One thing that we're really proud of are the licensed teachers and other staff that work in the district that we already have, but we'd really like to increase our number of licensed teachers to at least 20% of the LP staff by 2030. It's a lofty goal, but yeah, so
We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Okay, firstly, this picture is from like last week, and it is the middle school ski and snowboard club. So just want to point that out at Snowball and in partnership with Middlebury College. It's a great picture. But the point to the slide is we are charged to address gaps, and we have really, along the guidelines of the grant and the school district and the CDD and our families who we feel most interested in having supervise us, we're looking to strengthen social emotional health and behavior. And Katrina could vouch for the fact that we are constantly on the hunt for like doomsday data. She'll send us something, we'll be like, that's too great, like that's going too well. And so you all get to see incredible gains that the district has made and all the things that are happening. Meanwhile, we are searching for what is like pressing and like what we can show that there's urgency as we're writing multiple grants every single year. So we also kind of believe that if you look at ELP, it can kind of be a bellwether for what the district is working on. And so we'll talk about some more of our programs, and you might be able to pick out like, oh, clearly there's something around science for the district that we should be thinking about. So that is our work, and we feel really strongly that as we access that data and as we're cued into the work going on, and because we have such a nicely threaded relationship with the district and even places we serve. So I'm on the MAUSD District Advisory. So that was so fun to get to hear that presentation. John is a trainer for the district, and he'll talk about that more. But any way that we can infuse and embed the program and leadership within the district, we do, to ensure that we're addressing gaps and are really mindful and aware of moment-to-moment data that's coming through as we're measuring it.
Yeah, so to speak to build off what Mandy was just saying, we're really looking to provide this access to the students that need it most. As part of the grant, part of the 21st Century Grant that has a quarter of our budget, we're required to have more students enrolled in our program that qualify for reduced lunch in the school, the elementary school that they go to. So for example, if 30% of one school qualifies for free and reduced lunch, we have to have more than 30% every day in our program qualifies for free and reduced lunch. And why do we do this? We know that those kids, sadly, will have a gap in learning. So up to a 16% gap for recent data that we saw for ELA and in math. Furthermore, students on IEPs could have as much as a 46% achievement gap in ELA. And so these are students that we really know could benefit from the program along with the whole community. But it's a goal of ours and a requirement of the grant to have these students enrolled. In addition, so if a student qualifies for an IEP and has, let's say, behavior support during the school day, they can still have that behavior support at ELP. They can work really hard to build that out. We're going to talk more about how we do that, especially with our family support coordinator role, which is part of our admin team. And we also just wanted to highlight our partnership, about more partnerships, but with the MAUSD Food Cooperative, we were able to provide this year across all our sites a big healthy meal for after school. This was happening at a few sites. They all qualified this year. And we also were able to do that all summer with breakfast, lunch, and snacks. So kids are getting enrichment, they're getting good food, they're getting what they need.
Awesome. I love this slide, not just because Quincy is up there, my son, but because we have worked really hard to make sure that this program follows this edict, which is it's student-led, it's family-centered, and it's school-supported. Sometimes I think we're working in different directions on those three components. But ELP really stands by the concept that students first, as does the MAUSD community. And we see that happening in a variety of ways. You saw Calvin was here this evening, Cam was here this evening. These are our kids. But for example, we've had workshop series for the first time this year. We're going to talk about what workshops are, but students were leading these. So their peers could sign up to participate in a workshop series with a student leading out. And you might not be surprised that Calvin taught, what was it, Yo-Yo 3000, right? So that's something we're really excited about. Furthermore, our students really kind of explain, talk to us, vocalize what they are interested in, and we work to develop programming around that. Family centered. When we started 12 years ago, we were kind of this tiny little program that offered some enrichment and some tutoring and maybe some half days in the summer. And as we worked with families and continued to build the program each and every year, we added vacation camps, we added programming every day of the school year, we added more days in the summer. So we have responded to family surveys and feedback and needs in the community as we've built up the program. And this interesting concept of, as we're seeing a drop in student population around the state, ELP has seen an expansion of student population every year in the program. At some point, this has got to plateau. We filled our April camp in 3 minutes last night, and we're like, oh, it just doesn't feel great. We don't love that, and those were 70 spots. So we're always looking at ways that we can continue to grow, and families give that feedback right away.
Somebody wants to work April break.
Yeah, we could expand. And then, of course, the concept around pulling in all the resources we can. So that's the school supported aspect, and we go beyond that. So if we can pull down resources from the state, we do. If we can pull down resources from the federal government, we sure do. And the idea of almost like this gravitational pull in towards the students, everything that we can bring to them and to the families that surround them and uplift and take care of.
All right, so we're going to start talking more about summer right now. So part of our motivation in summer is to really meet the kids where they are, but give them a really amazing summer camp experience. Many of you in our program. This takes a really special approach where we're being proactive about how we meet where they are. One thing that we do is we're really proud of a team that we have working with us every summer that's made up of counselors, special educators, and behaviorists that can really be proactive and go to our different groups and figure out exactly who needs what and how we're going to do that. We've had a lot of feedback from our summer groups and our summer camp, and we send out parent surveys looking for parents to give us their experience, hear maybe what their kids had to say. And I just wanted to share one of those that came from a family. And they said, we love ELP for all 3 kids of ours because it gives them the opportunity to have fun, try new things, and meet new people. They develop meaningful relationships with adults, and they get a chance to interact with kids from other schools within our district, which we hope will make the transition to middle school a little less scary for all of us later on. 3 kids coming up, maybe a 6th grader, a 4th grader, a 2nd grader, and one of those kids who moved on to middle school. And they really valued that time where they're able to meet kids from all the other towns and kind of be in the same boat.
Yeah, did you want to talk about ESY?
Oh, yeah. So we're really proud of connecting with ESY extended school year through student services, and we every summer incorporate them. They're just part of the camp. They have their own space. So if a student student qualifies for services and needs services in the summer, they can be at ELP camp and just move seamlessly into their ESY services without really breaking stride. It makes it feel like just part of their day. They see their other friends doing it. It's built into their summer experience. We're going to be at the middle school this year, and we're excited to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So we've like talking about generalizations, values, and kind of brush strokes from a bird's eye view. Want to just kind of go through really quickly what like a day in the life of a student coming to ELP after school looks like. And then we'll look at summer in a second. But so our K through 6th grade program starts at 3 o'clock. We have ELP rooms allocated in each of the school buildings. So students are dismissed. If you've been in the school during the time, you've got the busers going, and then you've got walkers in ELP. They move to their designated spaces. They have community connection time. They have 30 minutes right off the bat to move their bodies. It's actually a state obligation. We would do it anyways, but we have to make sure that at least minimum 30 minutes of them running and breathing and getting all their energy out. And then we eat. John talked about, we have hot meals. We have incredible food that has been built out through the MAUSD food co-op. So we do that together, and then students have an opportunity to sign up, families and students, for workshops. So any of you who have done this know how this works. There's a variety of things, and we're going to read like a list, like a litany in a second, so you can hear what's been going on since September. Also, students can choose to stay and play. So that is like, wow, we've had a long 7-hour school day, and we just need Lego time and my friend next to me. That's also an option, and you can do a hybrid. You can have a couple things going on for your students that you choose from, and then some of that other time. At 5 to 5:30, we switch to some homework help, parent pickup. It's a busy time as we transition kids home. What we want to focus on and highlight is something that really, Katrina, we should just flash everything over to you now. But we have some pictures of Milo, my innovative learning opportunity. You've seen the bus when you drive into Mount Aim, and it just recently got outfitted. It is gorgeous. And I said, pay attention to some of the things we're doing, because you'll kind of see a little spoiler alert on some things we're all working on as a district. But we hired a science teacher who is going from school to school in this repurposed small bus that is now a classroom. So students can't ride on it, but inside it is like a wonderland of benches and tables and tools. And I don't even know the words. They're science words. You know the words. There's like a hot plate. Yeah. And the science teacher, Jody Pierce, has been moving to all the sites. And, John was talking about, you were talking about the other day where you were saying, what's great, John has a biology degree, so I keep pointing to him. But what's great about Jody is she comes, and anytime a student asks a question, she answers with a question. So the whole concept of inquiry is starting to bubble up, and all these kids are having that opportunity to intersect with it. Also with Milo, we've done some really great community outreach projects, specifically to our towns and communities that are furthest from the hub of Bristol. And we've gotten Milo out for community pop-ups with MAUSD clinicians, mentors, and other ELP staff. They popped up fires and marshmallows and brought food with them as well to provide from the co-op. So there's a day.
That's a day in after school during the school year. We want to show you a little bit about summer. We're really proud of our summer camp, as we were saying before. And like I said before, the goal is to make it feel like a classic summer experience. So we're getting the kids out. We do 40 field trips a summer, something crazy. We're going to the lake, we're going to the river, we're going to Shelburne Farms. We're getting them all over the state. We also bring people in, like we do during the school year. So we bring people like Circus Smirkus come in and do a circus workshop. We did contra dancing the last 2 summers.
It's my big thing.
You might have sweated it out with us in the gym for that. It's
I
live music,
love it so much.
So it's a blast. It's really, really fun. This year, we're going to be back at the middle school. We were there for 4 years. Then we were at Beeman and at Bristol for 2 years. We're back at the middle school in the building. And this video is from 2021. And we wanted to show this one because this was the last time, I believe, we were at the middle school. So we're just going to show you.
It's okay. Learn it from shine. Feet on the side. There's nothing going on. It's the natural road. The ground is shaking. You found it wrong. It's just a start. I just let it go. Just the natural road. So I'm so look at that show. Rain in the smoke. Natural route. Rain in the smoke. Here the rocket. All day and night. The world is noisy. And that's alright. Every sound is just to be so
Oh gosh, turn it off now. Turn it off. No, skip me dad. No, I got attacked. Let the record be set. I don't know how that happened. Sorry, little review.
But so yeah, you can really see what that summer camp experience looks like. How much fun we're having.
Yeah, we have trouble translating it to people unless you come or we watch the videos or whatever. Amazing. So just coming back to, and John and I were actually talking in the back, that we were really psyched that Up for Learning was here and talking about the strategic plan. We've been using the strategic plan, the one that exists currently, for quite some time. And the work that we've been doing, again, is trying to align, like we have mentioned, district goals to the after school world. John mentioned that we have housed with us the students and the community we're hoping to have housed with us. What a treat and a privilege it is for us to be, part of this community environment. But we want to make sure we pack it full, because it's like we can get so much done in this space after school, summer, and vacation. So each of our workshops, any parents who've been a part of this and have gotten the workshop offerings, we connect each offering to one of our 4 goals: expertise in learning, equity, social, emotional, and physical development, and community. And we're super excited for the Portrait of Learner to come out with our new ones. And we will develop new icons for that. And then our own ELP youth-led environment, which has been our goal for some time. We also wanted to highlight that we have Jen Allred up here. She is a member of our leadership team. She's the Director of Arts and Enrichment. She's also, just a little plug, she's getting some really amazing recognition on Sunday for her work within the community. And she's been working with us for 8 years. So she's built this feeder program. In the summer, we've been doing 3 through 6th grade musicals. Even through COVID, we did a movie in a drive-in theater during that time. So it was uninterrupted when music kind of quieted everywhere. It was still happening in our summer program. And she continues to look specifically to bring workshops in and draw partners in that are going to enrich students' lives in multiple ways that we in a second.
Okay, so what are those workshops? We're talking about workshops. I'm gonna give you the rundown, and I'm gonna do it by strategic goal, and just for K6 right now, September. So just this year. So for expertise in learning, we've had science in action, messy masterpieces, hands-on science using mediums. We've had Milo, my innovative learning opportunities, the traveling makerspace, STEM activities. We've got a workshop called Linking Engineering to Life, which brought UVM engineering students down to teach our students about engineering and solve different challenges. We've got one called Brain Games, a neuroscience workshop. A look into the comic book, exploring comic book creations. Middlebury College Language in Motion, a language and culture immersion program at college. Folks from around the world reading international stories and participating in cultural crafts. Paper engineering, the Zine Factory, build your own magazine. Yearbook Club, and then in our equity strategic goal, we've got Friends, which stands for Finding Relations in Extraordinary New Destination Spaces, exploring international friendships through pen pals, global flavor adventures, picking across cultures, around the world with Mrs. Lake, a geography workshop, Starksboro, Unity and Diversity, a quilt making workshop, Seasons Greetings, card making, Chef Robin's cooking class, and Junior Iron Chef, 2 more cooking workshops. In our social, emotional, and physical development strategic goal, we've got Taekwondo Kicks. We've got different theater workshops, including Broadway Bound, where kids write and perform their own plays, Page to Stage, karaoke kids. We've also got rowing this year with the mountain rowing coach. In our community strategic goal, we've got Bristol Blue Squad, Skills and Thrills Adventure. That's a partnership with the police department. We've got the name of the police officer and play dodgeball. Something wild. Dream mentoring, where high school students at Mount Abe come over to Bristol Elementary once a week and mentor Bristol students. And now those relationships will be for 2 years. The Forest Adventures Club, Preschool Pals, Middlebury Fusion, where Middlebury College students lead fun activities for young kids. And then last but not least, in our youth-led strategic goal, we've got Creative Crusaders Club, Chess with Liam, Dungeons and Dragons, Theater with Braylon and Maddie. I got this a little bit of. Tales and Treasures, Crafty Adventures and Big Buddies, and of course, Yo-Yo and 2000. So that was K through 6 for this September until now. We also want to highlight our middle school program, and these are offerings that have happened over the last couple of years. A working out workshop with BFit, indoor soccer, community dinners at the Hub, which has been a great partnership. Tell Your Story, a partnership with Willowell, Magic the Gathering, digital storytelling with drones, the GSA, the Gender and Sexuality Alliance, free swim and snorkel, pickleball, Lincoln and Dream to Life for middle school students, Babysitters Club, Math Counts, Middlebury College Oratory Now Project, Acapella Club, yoga, snowboard club that you saw a picture of. Our middle school musicals, like Jen Allred. We're doing Wizard of Oz. You can say it, right?
Yes.
The Jumbotron.
Yeah. It's out there.
And astronomy partnership with the Vermont Astronomical Society. And last but not least, our robotics team, the Matt Cotters, who went all the way to the state finals in their first year as a team in middle school.
Shocked us all.
Crushed it. They were amazing. So that's like,
Yeah.
We're so proud of that.
Yeah.
It's like, if you felt like it would be powerful.
Yes. Thank you. We toiled over whether to do that or not. That was good. So you just heard John dropping a ton of partnerships. This is a pretty feeble attempt to capture a couple of them. But part of our requirements for the work that we do is that we work with lots of community organizations, businesses, and that we draw down from other areas opportunities, like you heard UVM and Middlebury College, Maritime Museum. We've done all these things to pull them into our rural communities so our kids have access. We just updated our memorandum of understanding and developed 20 partnerships. Some of them are new, some of them have been with us for the last decade. Bristol PD is a new partnership and John kind of spoke to that. Bristol Fire Department, we're looking at the junior cadet program to see how we can build that in. Wild Roots Farm is a farm outside of town. We have our middle school program there last year and we'll have it there again. Newly led by Jill Coppell, who's been doing cooking in groups with students. Bristol Rec and Rec Club and the Hub have been a traditional partner with us for a long time. Cardboard Studio, a Brooklyn artist who has been working with our students on and off for the last couple of years. We're also building a partnership with the Bristol Collaborative Campus, the greenhouses that are outside of Bristol, the old Heffernan greenhouse spot, and a new collaboration with the Bristol or the Vermont Bicycle Touring Company to look at some office space. So always building partnerships, always working on this and drawing that into MAUSD as well. We've had partnerships plowing the ice rink that have been pulled out, just ways to, again, connect and build bridges to community, business, and beyond these little towns.
We want to highlight this part of our program as well. So many of you know Christy Bedard. She's our family support coordinator, worked in the community most of her career. And she's our family support coordinator. And what that means is she's really the boots on the ground, reaching out to families, in touch with so many families in this district to make sure they have access to our program. And that primarily rides on applying for subsidies, so you can first qualify. And if you don't, figuring out a scholarship from us. So that is in close coordination with the Addison County Family Support Coordinator, which is a whole other relationship that she's built over the years. She does a ton of family outreach as well, just making sure we know how best to support the families that we serve. We really want to highlight too, you'll see in the sides, we have this event coming again this weekend. I think we've had about 10 of these recycle reuse project events where we have a whole team who are really committed to bringing clothes to the community for folks that need it. Everything is free. It's in partnership with Junebug in Middlebury. Clothes are from newborn all the way through adult, and the last event we had over 150. So check it out. It's happening, I think, Saturday. Saturday at Bristol in the gym. It's a party. It's an ELP event. So come ready, but we're super proud of that. Right, so some of you may recognize Jen Wendell in the center there. She's also worked in the community for most of her career. She was our Bristol site coordinator, and she moved into a new position as the operations manager for the ELP. She does an array of things, but one of her main focuses is maintaining our license. So she does quarterly mock site visits at all of our schools, because believe it or not, a random site visit happens at every one of our licensed sites where a state official shows up and says, I'm going to go through the program. If this kid doesn't have their CPR certification, you get a violation. If I see that kid walking alone, you get a violation. If you're, I could go on and on.
Does someone miss washing their hands?
Yeah.
Violation.
So Jen oversees so much of that because she is the person for it. She knows the thick book I was talking about inside and out. And in addition to that, so our overall systems and safety as a whole program, that is a top priority. So we're in close coordination with every building principal to make sure that we're up to date with any changes to evacuation plans, and that all that information is disseminated to all our staff that we should chart. We also, under our license, are required to have every employee who's 18 or over certified in CPR and first aid. So we have a big staff. So I became the CPR and first aid trainer for the district. So I train all of our employees who need it, and I also help training other district employees. So we feel with this big team approach. Oh, and I also want to mention because we're CED and we're AOE, every employee has 2 sets of fingerprints. Some of you might have heard this before, or had to experience it, or had a nephew who had to do it, or a family member, but it's really important. So the CDD has their way of doing it, and the AOE has their way of doing it. So everybody has to do both sets. And with this whole team approach and all of these really necessary groups that we've done through, we feel like we're, if not the safest program, one of the safest programs in the state.
Okay, we're almost done, folks.
Yeah.
Thank you
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, you've all done so well. This is what happens when you give us our moment, Patrick. So we just want to circle back, right? Because this was the hot topic that kind of, we were the ones sitting on the other side of the screen last spring, listening to, like really great, really important questions and getting to listen to how people grappled with those questions. So coming back, we just want to make a huge point of this, that our program is supported by multiple funding streams. That we're showing it now in a little bit of a different dimensional pie chart, but to show that about 10% of our overall budget is supported from the general fund. And to also, I had an opportunity to have a conversation with someone about the fact that that is a requirement for the 25% of our budget that comes through the grant. So there has to be some kind of nod towards a financial investment from the fiduciary agent, our district. So if that piece was to be removed, the 10% of our overall budget from the budget, we would also lose 25% of the federal dollars that are coming through. Again, 35% coming from the CDD and others 30% coming from family contributions. And again, just like securing that point that like when in the summer, our program for the week for 45 hours of care and field trips and all these things comes to about $250 per student coming. And again, John mentioned all the ways that we can make sure that we mitigate that cost for people or it's free. The actual cost of that program is $1,000 a week per child, but we're subsidizing it through all of this work by 70%, which we are so proud of. And Mike Dash, you were my hero last spring. You said something, just so you know. I hope it was you. Maybe it wasn't. It will be even better if it wasn't.
You'll take it anyway.
It was.
Yeah.
There was a question, and I think one of the leadership at MAUSD talked through this exact concept and kind of went through it. And you called everyone to pause for a second. Does this sound right to you? You said, let's just hang on for 1 second. So for every dollar a taxpayer pays in, they get a $9 return. Let's just sit with that. And I was like on the other, John and I on the other side of the screen, like, thank you. That is accurate. That is so important. And we worked tirelessly with so much support to make sure that that happens. And just wanted to leave that a reminder of this is a big program. We've grown huge and we are working to support it outside of taxpayer money so that can go to the school day. And this is it.
Yeah.
This is you.
Yeah, so looking forward, we feel really confident about continuing to build a sustainable program and continuing to grow. So that means, having this diverse set of funding streams and being ready for every grant that comes down the line that we qualify for. It means really putting students and families first. Listening to adopting what they really want. So just final thought is that we're not just financially efficient, but we're also a high impact investment in the future for MAUSD.
Questions. We leave any room for questions. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Barb. Yeah. Any questions? Yes, those are those. What are you doing?
Nothing is always, I'm gonna go to these conferences without good average. And we feel pretty confident about how we recruit, but I would say, yeah, that's, like I said,
I mean, it's a wonky job too.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's like a second job, right? It's after school or a third job. In the summer, it's different, but there's pockets of time. So it's a tricky recruit. It really is to capture individuals. Also space, always, right? Yeah, we are always, we call it, not a hermit crab, but the other thing. Is it a hermit crab?
Yeah.
That crawls from shell to shell?
Yeah.
Yeah, we sometimes think of ourselves like that, we're using our district buildings, but we are literally like a circus coming to town and setting up in spaces. So someday we may have a space. Yeah.
Have you seen an increase in families receiving financial assistance through 5 seconds?
Yeah, so even the threshold, the financial income, right? How they look at income and who qualifies for financial assistance through the state has gone up. So people are often surprised and that's why we ask everyone to apply for subsidy first before we move to our scholarship, because more and more, and within the last 2 weeks, the CDD just sent us more information that they have upped again the threshold for income to offer subsidy. I mean, we're watching closely. We are all in, we're very mindful that could,
Last, yeah, with Act 76 too.
So I had a question about the sign up and the 3-minute fill up. How can we navigate that? How can?
Stressful.
Yeah. There's
Being on the other side of the computer
Yes.
at 5:59, being ready.
Melissa knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone compared it to trying to get into a rock concert in the fall, there was, and we've done lots of different things.
It's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic that we are always considering. You got text this time. Did you notice that you got text? Yeah. So, yeah, you got email, you got text. We put it live on the
Which
website.
made it feel even faster because people were even more prepared, which is great. We want everybody to have that equal footing to be able to access. We have people that reach out and say, I won't be able to access the internet at the time the registration goes out. What can I do? And we say, we'll get you a spot, and there's a number of spots that we save for families that already don't have that access or that ability, or they're, locked into a job even at 6 o'clock on a Friday or a Monday, but it's a hot topic. It's a hot topic with other programs. It's a pretty different approach depending on the program. Some do a lottery system. I used to live in Burlington and my daughter attended the program there. And if you attended the program the previous school year, you just got a spot, which was great. But as a newcomer, I was like, how do I get into the after school program? So there's definitely not like the perfect scenario in how to register for our program. But even with the 3-minute fill up and 70 kids a day, we feel confident. There are 8 kids on the wait list right now. We feel confident we can get them in. So that there won't be an actual wait list. There won't be anybody who's actually missed out.
Is there a cap or is it just the staffing?
So under our license, we have to have a ratio of 13 students to 1 staff member, who's over 18. We like to have that ratio be more like 8 to 1. So there is a cap in that way, but it's really more about how many qualified staff want to work for April vacation. As an example, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
and just to be clear, I mean, the fact that we'll probably have 80 students at April vacation camp, that's the largest April vacation camp we've ever run. And that just trends that way for ELP every year. We're bigger.
And it's a work in progress though, and we're so open to feedback. We've gotten feedback from parents too about, is there a different way to do this? And it's a running conversation for sure.
I think that's important to note that there are slots saved. So when we shut it down, we may have 20 slots that are saved for a variety of reasons that are specific to even like John was saying, individuals who won't have access, who have reached out, individuals that we know can use that extra assistance in registration.
So it sounds like it's not like you have like 140 kids who want to be there, for spring break.
No.
So you're not that far off.
No.
Okay.
Not that we hear about, but I think there's definitely kids who we've served in the past, for example, and they might not have signed up and we're like, was the process too stressful? That's where Christy Bedard comes in a lot of the time. She's got her finger on the pulse for a lot of these families and all of us. I mean, the connections that we have to most of these families runs really deep, whether it's like 3 years or 5 years serving their whole family. So being able to check in with them and see like, did you not register because you saw this X, Y, and Z in terms of our output, or making sure that we know exactly why they might not have signed on.
I would just say, like, I would sign my kid up, but I know that space is limited and it's not a need,
Interesting.
right?
That's interesting.
I know that she can be with me or my boy could So and I feel like it needs to be reserved for other, so
Yeah.
if there was more space, I think more people would participate, but it
That's a
feels
great
like
point.
special, like.
Yeah,
We've never heard that feedback, Liz. That's really important.
yeah.
I agree with you, like, everybody, I was like, I'll just work from home, I guess the kids can say it's a week, can't do that in the summer, but like,
Right.
I agree with you, I was like, I'll, leave that spot for somebody else, and I'll just keep the kids for a weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
Rare, but.
That was my exact mentality as well.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't even sign on because I didn't need it, and I knew there was a lot of other families that did.
Not that they wouldn't enjoy it. They
No,
absolutely-
yeah,
totally.
but wow, we could be
Yeah.
missing like 10 to 15% of MAUSD families just because they're carefully.
I was saying that last night, I was like, I think we could probably be up around 110.
Yeah.
if we can find the staff, if everybody, and I didn't pinpoint exactly that sentiment, but that makes sense that. Yeah, that's where you're coming from, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Can I offer a commercial?
A commercial, yes,
You all know
from
I
our
have a bunch of
sponsors.
kids, right? They're all in college. And how many are coming back this summer to work for you?
How many kids do you have?
2, 4, 5, 6,
I think 6 of, yeah,
or maybe 7
yeah.
will be working for ELP this summer. If you know of college students who have a desire to have a whole lot of fun, connect them.
And
It's a
get paid-
great,
paid
it
pretty
has been
well.
a great summer job for these kids.
Yeah, yeah. And we're
And they
almost
work
fully,
hard.
we're almost fully staffed for the summer, so get in quick, like, we're psyched, we've got our people for the summer.
Listen, half of mine will be working for you as well.
I
That's funny. Oh, it's worth it, I'm for it.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right,
Right, let me,
yes.
I'm trying in. Do-si-do.
Right.
Good night. You're still here.
Action item C, which is to approve monitoring report 2.7 compensation and benefits. Can I please get a motion?
So moved.
Melissa first,
I'll second.
Kristen second, discussion on monitoring report 2.7, please. Any questions or comments?
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. So, based upon the information provided, does the board find that the superintendent's interpretation is reasonable? Yes or no?
Yes.
Does the data demonstrate accomplishment of this interpretation? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of approving monitoring report 2.7, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion passes. Next is an action to approve monitoring report 2.8, communication and support to the board. Can I please get a motion?
So moved.
Meredith first,
I'll second.
Kristen second, discussion please. Yeah, let's get another opportunity to say appreciate the superintendent's reports. It's really helpful, so thank you. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would, I had one thought. I mean, I think I think the monitoring report's fine. One of the concerns that I've had, recently, especially, with the, this, pending tectonic shift in, education reform, consolidation, or what have you, trying to, respond to some of the challenges we have, is that, with the governor, the governor's new, his proposal, and, Bert was telling me that the Ed Committee is gonna be coming out with their recommendations, or at least something to counterbalance what the governor's saying, just the next couple of weeks. I worry a little bit about, as we, I'll repeat what I said a couple of years ago, and so forgive me, or for those of you who have heard before, forgive me, but I think there are a bunch of new people who haven't heard it, but the anecdote about how many Vermonters does it take to change a light bulb? Well, none, because Vermonters don't like change. And so we're moving into a sort of uncharted territory in my view, in terms of, sort of education reform of the state. We've had, I think it would not be unfair to say, somewhat disastrous experience in the recent past. With respect to the merger and the consolidation, closing schools and that sort of stuff, which has resulted in, one of our towns leaving and one of our towns almost leaving, and a whole lot of consternation among taxpayers and people in the community about the sort of direction of the school system and what the objectives of the school system are and whether they really align with the community. I think this whole notion of, this whole trust thing is a little overblown, but I do think that, we've had some very, issues, demonstrable issues of lack of communication and misunderstandings between, the board, the school system and the community. So what I'm worried about is that as we're going into this new phase, I worry about us getting too far ahead of it. Because that's what we did last time. We got ahead of it before the community was ready for it. And while, Patrick, I really appreciate that you're providing us with, the sort of backstory information, background information to make our jobs easier. But I have to say, I was a little concerned about the recent testimony that was presented, I guess, with the Superintendent's Association. Because although, that testimony, you weren't making any recommendations, clearly. It wasn't, saying, this is the way we have to go. But I think a fair reading of the testimony, and I read it a couple of times, is that it does provide somewhat of a blueprint for, school consolidation and class and school size and that sort of thing, which if, a community member might read that testimony, which is, part of the public record, and come away with the notion that the policy of the board or the direction of the board is predetermined, that, we're just gonna close schools. And that's end of the story. And so I worry about that, because that is, in the testimony that you gave, you talked about, it's very factual, and I get that, it was very helpful, but it did not integrate into the discussion any of the issues that have proven to be very disruptive in the community, such as local control, rural versus suburban kinds of approaches and that sort of thing. And those are the things that are gonna animate and maybe even control the direction and and then the tempers around school change. So I guess all of which is, my thinking is that when you have those sorts of opportunities, and I think that you should take advantage of those opportunities. I think somehow it has to be pretty clear in the testimony that this is not necessarily policy of the MAUSD board. And I think that has to be spelled out. Again, there's not a whole lot, when I read that your testimony, there's not a whole lot I necessarily disagreed with, but I could see folks in the community saying, hey, Ward and Patrick, they just, they're gonna they're gonna close Beaman, they're gonna close Robinson, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. And that just doesn't, as we know, that just hasn't worked out so well. So, I just want to raise that, and it's sort of related to this monitoring report.
Brad,
I appreciate
correct
that.
me if I'm wrong, since I'm new, but we as a board don't have we don't have the authority to close schools, right? It has to go to a vote for the community, so
Well, right.
so to me, knowing that we have one employee and it's Patrick, his statement was very factual, and I just hope the community knows that no matter what Patrick's viewpoint is, we just don't have the authority to do that.
Well, right, yeah, but the point is that the perception might be that, the board, despite, 2 years ago, having passed a resolution that we won't close schools without a community vote, might get lost in the translation.
I'm just gonna grab Kathy first and then I'll come back to you. Yeah, Kathy?
I have to disagree that we are in compliance with number 4. Let the board be unaware of any significant incidental. I think that we were totally blindsided when the announcement came of this intensive AOE investigation, and had members of the board not also been parents and received the mailing directly, the board never would have known in a timely fashion. And I think if we're in a position of trying to build trust, to have the board be the last folks to know something about this, that should have been brought to our attention much, much more quickly, especially when the call went out in November and we didn't hear about it until February.
Kathy, let's just rein it in a little bit because some of it is still protected information.
That was all brought out in a board meeting. That was in an open meeting. And I think that we've got to really look carefully at what we're asking for timeliness and invest in information coming from the superintendent. That is not happening. And I would not agree that we're in compliance.
Thank you.
Apropos of this discussion, when we have our articles, I just sort of got an update from one of my colleagues over at Montpelier. And they're planning, or at least there's some idea that they're still putting this bill together. All sorts of things. But one of the things they brought up was the notion of by law taking away a district's ability to have parents' votes. So, wow. That's so I think it is kind of relevant discussion, and I could certainly. And people will know that at some point in the next few days, and probably get a little worried about that in the context of, where's the board really being on this, right? So, new breaking news.
And we'll discuss all that too in a further down agenda item. About the nuances of what's going on, but in terms of this report and especially in thinking about the communication piece, I think the point was just to make sure that whatever testimony is given is labeled as to where the origin is, so that there isn't any unintentional speaking on behalf of MAUSD board. Which is easy.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yep. And then Kathy made one point about number 4, I don't know if anyone is having other reactions to that. Or if it's something we can make note of on our paperwork, Kathy, to just say, I think the point was made pretty well during that discussion that we had around that topic about how that felt for us to be in that position. I think I've certainly tried to create a practice of being really proactive, and I think we've demonstrated that pretty frequently. To push that as a priority, to be proactively communicating about things that might crop up, so. I don't know if you had any other thoughts about.
Yeah, I just want to point out, and Patrick does address this in the monitoring report. I think it's page 3 of 9, where he talks about this particular instance. This is under evidence communications from the superintendent, on page 3. And Patrick points out this particular instance, did not provide communication to the board before the situation became a public matter. Provide some context for that. And provides a path forward, I think, and that he notes that he'll err on the side of notification to avoid situations like this to the extent possible. So, you know, regardless of how I or anyone feels, I think about that particular situation, it feels like those previous conversations and this monitoring report have acknowledged that event and also talked about how we might move forward. And it speaks to some partial compliance, which at least from my perspective is a really nice way to categorize this, because I think the vast majority of times throughout the entire year, save perhaps that one time, there's been full compliance. And so even if that's a big issue for some, I still think that there really is largely compliance, and an acknowledgement of how we can be more compliant, fully compliant. And really, yeah, so I guess the short of what I'm trying to say is I appreciate this monitoring report addressing that head on, with a very forward-looking vision.
Any other thoughts? Did you raise your hand again, Kathy, or is it up from before? Okay, thank you. All right, so no other thoughts, right? Okay. Based upon the information provided, does the board find that the superintendent's interpretation is reasonable? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Does the data demonstrate accomplishment of this interpretation? Yes or no?
Yes.
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have an option to
Second.
capture that.
Okay.
I've only been here 2 minutes.
Is there any other evidence you request? I'm not sure if I can, if the resolution for number 4 was that is captured, if that's how the majority of you feel. Just a thumb if you feel that way. So it's okay if you have, yep,
Yeah,
that's okay. I was just trying to get the majority of us feel that way so that it'll push through that. That's how we feel. If there's any other evidence that you might request. Have a discussion about that too.
Maybe that's where this comes up, that, you know, when we're going over to Montpelier and talking about stuff, might be good to have a discussion, you know, if it's a major issue affecting the board.
Okay. I did capture that we really appreciate the superintendent reports. And then I did capture when providing testimony, just to make sure to label the origin to avoid unintentionally speaking on behalf of the MAUSD board. Did that capture what you were looking for? Or were you?
Oh, I mean, it depends on magnitude of the issue, but on big issues, you know. Be nice to have a discussion.
Sure. Well, the board might have something that you might find valuable if you're testimony on a particular issue. I mean, but I agree that would be on a case by case, issue by issue.
Not every little.
Yeah, not every little thing.
And circumstances don't always allow for that.
Well, that's
Yeah,
true. They asked you the night before.
Yeah.
So I'll just put in possibilities for board discussion regarding. Okay. All those in favor of approving monitoring report 2.8, communication and support to the board, please say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
And any opposed? Kathy? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Next is an update or the financial report, so we can open the floor for questions or wonderings about that.
I address a timing issue, you may have noticed it, between the operating statement and then the fund expenditures. We had a timing issue when we pulled these, where the operating statement was pulled. We got interrupted, and 4 hours later, we ran the expenditures. AP closed some POs, so those numbers don't necessarily match up as they should. I did print a new, today, a new operating statement which aligns. The difference is $17,000. It's a $17,000 to the positive in our fund balance. But it doesn't true up. But I wanted to make sure that it wasn't unnoticed on our end, and it's really as simple as AP went in and closed or opened some purchase orders that encumbered money after we ran the operating statement and moved it forward. Typically, we run them both right bang, bang, so that those changes still happen. They just aren't reflected, right? It's a snapshot of both of them at exactly the same time. What you have in front of you is a snapshot of about 3 or 4 hours difference. Sorry.
Any other things you want to touch base on for the financial report? Quiet in the financial quarter.
All right, probably Melissa's question.
I don't know. All right, so we'll move on then to the superintendent's report. Any thoughts or comments?
Are we allowed to ask for suggestions for like past times? I just was thinking the presentation with the principals, when Mike from Moncton mentioned, changing that to have that morning recess, and he was about to go get the data and see what the impact was, like, it would be nice to hear to close that loop, what benefit that had on his school.
I also want to recognize this incredible graph showing the growth of kindergarten literacy from the fall to winter. I've been in education a long time, and that growth is incredible. So way to go, 150.
Other thoughts? Okay, we'll move down then to the board management and governance section. The first is an action item to authorize the superintendent to make hiring commitments. But can you please get a motion? So Meredith first.
Second.
Kylie second. Discussion. Just as a reminder, this is one of the things we delegate to Patrick to do. It's part of our process. We just do this every year to make sure everyone's on the same page with that.
And in particular, in these challenging staffing times, waiting for the months in between sessions to commit to employees likely means we lose employees. So this makes it super clear, and it's delegated to me, and that way I can, when we get the right candidate for a position, we can offer them the job, and it has that weight behind it, and we don't run the risk of losing folks.
All those in favor of authorizing the superintendent to make hiring commitments, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Next, we're just continuing our discussion around retreat dates. I'm gonna resend, because we have a new board member now and people's summer plans might be starting to consolidate. So I had sent out a survey earlier this year, just getting a quick straw poll about availability. We have some more information now about when admin are coming back into the building and when they're on vacation. So I will resend you all a Survey Monkey. Please do that as quick as you can so we can get a date on the table. I understand if not everyone can be there or if it's difficult, like stuff happens, the summer's crazy. But if we can get a majority of people on one day, that would be great. So look for that. And then just another opportunity for you to bring up any other topics we'd want to focus on. And as a reminder, we've come up with a fair few of those already. I think that might be a time where we get some training around monitoring reports would be a good time to do that and how to do those. Because we'll have had a break in July from doing those and then they start up again August, September. But we also did a lot about future thinking, right? How to be a board that does future thinking, and then maybe some more opportunity to work with policy and governance as a board. Is there anything else that feels important to add at the top?
I wonder, is there gonna be room for digesting or having input, or are we needed for any of the work that UP has presented?
Yeah.
Would that be?
It is, so in the week that the retreat typically falls in, I have folks from up kind of holding time as this conversation unfolds to see if that feels like a time that this board wants to invest in starting the work of revising the ends, or launching into strategic planning or some combination of the two. We're up to support that work. Part of the contract with UP was for the portrait of a learner, which we're in the midst of now, and helping with strategic planning. The ends work wasn't part of it, but could be an extension if we wanted to pursue that. So if that support was desired and that was the retreat time is a place you wanted to use some time to dig into that, I'm trying to keep that window open for you, but I'll need to let them know soon so they can move on if we're not gonna need them.
Thanks.
Liz and I talked about the monitoring report support. And we think will probably happen before the retreat.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Great.
We needed to have that on the retreat list.
Great. And let me know when you're thinking you might be ready for that and we'll plug it into a agenda.
Well, we were thinking about doing small group sessions outside of, full board meetings. Might be a little bit more effective. And there may be, and some board members may not want to do it.
Sure. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Keep me in the loop. If I can support you both in designing or whatever you need, let me know. Any other thoughts?
Brad, I think it would be a great time to do it as a whole board because then it wouldn't have to be a repetitive session and we'd all learn more from each other because we've all approached it differently. And it would be great to have all the combined input. It doesn't have to be a long presentation, but I would really like to do it during the retreat.
I can't commit to the retreat. That's a really bad time for me anyway, so.
Well, let's chew on it then, because
We'll talk about it.
yeah, it's possible we could do it in both capacities, right? We could do sort of ad hoc as people are doing monitoring reports and then do. Maybe I tag with you, Liz, then if Brad's unavailable to do more group-based one at the retreat. Okay. Other things. And maybe there'll be more, we just don't know it yet. As the education policy efforts unfurl. Okay. If something comes to you, you know how to get to me. we'll move down then to discussion item C, which is the Vermont education policy effort. So I'm gonna sort of bump it over to Patrick to talk about what he knows and then maybe tag in Herb as he's also highly involved at the state level.
Yeah, boy, but what is true is different moment to moment. It's moving rapidly, I think is a fair statement. There are multiple committees that are involved in various aspects of sort of the governor's bill, if you will, the finance portion is being handled in committees outside of House Ed, Senate Ed. House Ed right now is the one that's doing the bulk of the work within the frame of the governor's proposal and the governor's bill. I think making some pretty substantial adjustments to the language as it's gonna sort of emerge in a couple of weeks. I sort of think about it in three buckets. So there's a governance bucket that there's some significant language that speaks about whether it's district size and how that governance looks, or more so, how is it governed at a state level and what responsibilities does the State Board of Ed have versus the Agency of Education, the secretary. So a lot of conversations about what makes sense there. Then there's sort of this concept of how we deliver education, and that's where that notion of scale comes in. So districts fit there too, in terms of there's a lot of conversation about what's the right boundary lines to draw for districts. How many of them? Where are they? How we organize that? There are many different opinions about that. I have no sense, I don't know if you do, or where any of it's gonna land. There's a lot of talk, really hard to know where it's gonna land. And then there's sort of the finance, like how do we pay for this? Is sort of another bucket that I think about. And a foundation formula is sort of the key concept in that, which right now the sense is the foundation formula is not likely to sort of move this session. It's likely to move at some point, but probably not out of this particular session because of just the volume of the work that's happening right now. Many different advocacy groups, various perspectives. House Ed in particular, I'm more familiar with their work. They've been taking a lot of testimony from a lot of people on a whole range of things, and they're, I think, doing a really noble job of trying to hear it all, make sense of it, and sort of build it into their work, really rolling their sleeves up with that, and trying to move swift enough to be responsive to the concerns of constituents around affordability, but be intentional and deliberate. And there's a little bit more lead time needed to do that well. So trying to really walk that line. Senate Ed is having a lot of conversations as well. There's a different bill that has emerged there. A lot of wondering about, when the House Ed bill crosses over, like how do those two come together? Because they're pretty different. And how does that look when it comes out of Senate Ed for others to weigh in on? I don't have any clarity on that. But it is, again, from my biased perspective, the talk in the State House. There are other things, but this is the big thing that's getting a lot of traction, highly controversial, and likely will be for the next year of the biennium as well. It's a lot of wood to chop in this. That's sort of the super quick, big picture.
Yeah.
And Herb's there a lot.
And it's a really good overview. Those are the hot topics. I thought I'd maybe focus on some of the things that, might really impact a local district. Patrick mentioned, the financing, got the system now, all warts and all, looking like we're moving to a foundation formula. And what my takeaway on that is that I know you guys did noble work trying to deal with the budget last year, right? And this year, my sense is that the cost pressures are gonna be pretty challenging. With the pieces that are moving along in this legislation. The foundation formula, the idea is, okay, we'll give you kind of a block grant, per pupil. Depending on what level that is, right? It could it could be challenging, right? The other piece around that I think is gonna be challenging there. The governor said, okay, we're gonna, have tax relief this year because a lot of these other things won't take place. Implemented over the next few years, so if you have, so he's still gonna buy down, right? The tax rate, I think he was looking at average, it's statewide, not you guys. 5.6, 5.8 or something like that statewide. And if you get this infusion of money, well, that's gonna drop it down again statewide, not this district, that's the but to about 1%. So fine, you got 1%, but then what do you do next year, right? The following year. And so that I can anticipate it might be some challenges there.
I think that something I just saw recently, I think the yield bill uses about $115 million in one-time funds to do just that, buy that down, and that's $115 million hole for FY27 that we start off in.
Yeah.
Do we know what that's gonna do for our projections? I mean, I think that's recent, but they haven't have an updated yield that would.
So the updated yield, we were about, our projections showed a yield of, I think, about $40 less than what the yield in the yield bill that as drafted now is. So it would be a bit better than what we were projecting. So even more of a tax decrease would be the result.
But
Haven't
then
quantified
compared to
it.
next year.
Yeah, and next, and caveat, as Patrick says, this, it's just the House, right? It's gonna go to the Senate, you're governor, so a lot of this stuff could change, so,
And not even could, like
don't get.
it's going to change.
Yeah, so, it's important not to get too excited, but it's probably also good for, what's on the horizon.
One of the things that is of interest to us all and perhaps of concern, as I think about it, there's almost nothing that's being discussed right now that can be changed as a standalone and not have a domino effect of unintended consequences. And then we sort of map that over the reality of there's no way they can address everything all at the same time. It's just too much work to do. So that question of what actually moves and how does it move and what are the unintended consequences when other things that it's connected to don't move, it is going to be something to really think about and try to understand what does that mean for us here. Foundation formula at the rates that the governor's bill proposed, $13,200 per student, we would need to cut $3.5 million from our budget to be working at that level. That's a ballpark.
Yeah, at some point they're gonna. Well, anyway.
All is in
who
flux.
knows?
Yeah.
So the other issue, I was thinking, there might be interested in this governance idea, the governor said 5 districts, that was a big district. The Senate's talking about 9 districts, other people talking about sort of organizing around CTE, which is about 15 or 17 districts. And then I originally said, well, maybe they're gonna just punt on the thing and think about it this summer, so. That's the kind of range of possibilities. Class size and school size, I think Patrick touched on those. They do have some numbers out for class size. That I suspect are lower than ours, I don't know. So that's another pressure point, I think too.
Minimum average class size of 12 for kindergarten, 15, 1 through 4, 18, 5 through 8, and 20, 9 through 12. Where my mind went immediately with those numbers was here at Mount Abe in the high school. And there's a lot of question about what's excluded from that minimum average of 20. So knowing that that's still being discussed, if we were to be required to have a minimum average class size of 20, so remember at Mount Abe, our average class size is smaller than our average class size in our elementary schools because of the decline and our effort to try and keep a breadth of programming. But we have to hit an average class size of 20. We're going to lose a lot of programs because we don't have enough students to offer the breadth of programming and have them all have 20 kids in the class.
There's probably gonna be a lot of pushback to that.
Sure.
The school size, right? And we got, these articles, right, that say, you have a vote. And Mari Cordes, just gave me some news that they were talking about doing away with, from a state legislative perspective, saying, okay, cut that out. I think a lot of people in sort of rural areas like ours are kind of, really worried about that because there are a lot of folks in Montpelier who think that would be a good idea, right? There's a bunch of us saying, before you close, just we'll give the community the opportunity to show that it's doing a good job. The final issue that I think was consequential, Kathy in particular, CTE is up in the air, and there's a separate part there, that the committee I'm dealing with is talking about that, Kathy, so I do want to talk to you to see what you think about that. They're talking about one single statewide district. So that would be a big change and, some tension around that. The main issue there is how to get more access, how to get more students into CTE. It's just really important.
And around the governance too, like it's curious how CTE is being treated as a standalone thing separate from K-12 public education as opposed to something that's part of K-12 public education.
Yeah. Some of us are saying, gee, this is a terrific opportunity, maybe, kind of merge things a little bit. It would certainly help, I think, the alignment issues around between CTEs and high schools.
Yeah.
We heard a bunch of CTE directors over the past week or so, and they said, don't change anything, to your point, right? Don't change anything. So we'll see.
The one certainty is something's got to change.
What's that?
The one certainty is something's got to change. We just don't have any certainty. What, when, where, why, how.
When you look at the cost, though, it's important to recognize what we're paying as a district to go to Middlebury. It's 50% more than what we're paying per student.
Right.
Plus everything we're paying here for that student who's going here part-time.
Right.
I mean, it is a staggering number.
Yeah.
And scary.
Yeah, and that whole tuition system, I mean, a lot of people are talking about, it's a real problem. And it's a source of a lot of tension and friction, both ways. But we'll see how far they can get on it. That's my update.
I always appreciate when there's a nice balance of, and I do feel like your testimony has, it's not that I agree or disagree with everything. I majority agree, right? But I'm not the whole board either. So I appreciate when it brings a sense of balance that yes, it's kind of like a kid coming into their school day. There's challenges. There's things that are going to be hard, right? But there's also a lot of opportunities. So I really like when there's a point to notice the opportunities that could exist for students with the changes and the opportunities that could exist for our communities with some changes as well. So when we can kind of also bring that into the conversation as us adults doing hard things so that kids can, so that we can consider a variety of possible future options on their behalf. Like we're sitting in it right now. We're sitting in a consolidation. Right, Mount Abe is one. And we have moved from the funding formula to our current funding system. And so we have done, like, it's not unprecedented. It doesn't feel that way to me, but it feels like as much as we need to know our challenges so that we're not blindsided by them, also knowing our opportunities.
Huge. Yeah, and maybe I was trying to, give you a picture of some of the things on the horizon. But you're right, little opportunities like with CTE, when's the last time that people actually talked about the relationship between CTEs and high school? This is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And more conversations like this to come as we have information coming to us.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. At this time, I'll open the floor for public comment. We don't have any in the room. Is there any online public comment? Right. Seeing none, we do have an executive session. And that's under T1 VSA 5 through and 3 A1E, which is pending or probable civil litigation. And for this executive session, we would need to invite in Patrick, Katrina, Beth, and Floyd. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Meredith first. Second. Barb second. All those in favor of entering executive session at 8:54, please say aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? So we will move into that and.
Yes. I don't think iPhone is a board member, so I'll create a breakout room. And we can go into that.
Okay.
And then I'll have it down there in this computer too.
Like you did last time.
Are we going there or are we gonna stay?
Well, we
I
have,
think,
you could stay.
I think we can stay here and we'll be and this computer will be as well in separate rooms. I think that should take care of it.
But otherwise, we could.
And it's a moot point anyway now because phone is gone.
Allergies, it's allergies, sure.
So let me just stop the recording.
Still recording?
Yeah, I'm just gonna stop that.
And we're just,
Well, I'll pause it.
but I can do that evaluation, if you'd like, just because your voice is, yeah, okay. All right.
Just make sure to know the time it came out.
So we exited executive session at 9:24. What was the level of engagement of all board members, high or low?
Hi.
Was the agenda followed? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
With the amendment.
With the amendment, yeah. Does the chair effectively establish the agenda materials for distribution to the board? Yes or no?
Yes.
Any comments?
Thanks, Sarah.
Is the chair effective in fostering a professional culture regarding fair and open deliberation, full participation of all members and ensuring the integrity of board process? Yes or no?
Yes.
Any comments? Other feedback for chair? What went well with the meeting?
I liked the presentations from PLP and.
Good
Presentations were.
Yeah.
We got you to come back after the last meeting and. Right?
Yeah, echoing that, I think finding space for positives. Right, to bring to the board meeting, to bring to the community, highlight things that are going well and opportunities like. I think whenever we can infuse those and take a moment from doom and gloom, and this is.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's important to remind us and the community why we're here. So I really appreciate that we have two really sizable chances to do that tonight.
Yeah, it was very, I was starting. It was very good for him. I think it does a lot for them to hear that, you know, we care.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other suggestions for future meetings? Okay. Motion to adjourn? So moved. Melissa,
No second.
Kristen. All those in favor of adjourning at 9:26 PM, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.